Often on Hello Houston, we discuss affordable housing from a policy and regulation perspective. The conversation usually focuses on policy affecting zoning restrictions or tax incentives to improve opportunities for builders and options for residents right here in Houston. But we wanted to dive in deeper today with someone who isn't just talking about it, but doing something about it. Joining us now to tell us more is Chris Seay, the pastor, self-proclaimed Houston lover, and quite possibly one of the biggest Astros fans I know. Chris, welcome to Hello Houston.
For sure, Celeste. So good to be with you.
And if you would like to join the conversation for the question or a comment for Chris, you can give us a call or send us a text at 713-440-8870. Now, Chris, before we jump into, the housing market and affordable housing right here in Houston right now, how did this kind of become a thing for you?
Well, I'm a Houstonian, right? And I'm a pastor. So if you love the city, and I'm not just a Houstonian, and I'm not just a pastor, I'm a native Houstonian. My dad and grandfather were also pastors in Houston. So we were pastoring my family in this city when it was a small town in the 1950s when my grandfather was pastoring here. And the city's changed. It's transformed. And I started Ecclesia 26 years ago in Montrose. And from the beginning, we've been working with brothers and sisters that were living on the streets. And we're really effective at that. I just came from our downtown campus, and today's shower day, so we got shower trailers outside, and there are about 120 people there waiting to get a shower and getting services for the homeless. And I've been watching that, and we love getting people into homes. But I've watched Houston. What used to be our superpower, right, was that we were an affordable city, the best great city you could live in that was affordable. And we're no longer affordable. Not only are we not affordable, the scarcity of housing has made it so expensive that if you live on an hourly wage, you might end up living in your car. You might end up on the street. And that's just it's not right. So because I care, we started going, we got to do more than just supportive services for people that are living on the streets.
So what is the new profile of the homeless person?
Well, historically in Houston, we would say most people are living on the streets because of some mental health issues or addiction. And we're not seeing just that anymore.
Right. So what are we seeing?
We're seeing people that are working an hourly wage and they can't find housing. They can't find something they can afford. They're evicted. They're moved to the next spot, but that eviction makes it impossible to get into future housing. And so you end up couch surfing. You end up sleeping on, not just under underpasses, but in different places that you have to get creative. And a lot of people are living in their cars in Houston.
And just one thing also to point out while you're talking about this is not just you can't afford it, that a good chunk of Houstonians, you can probably give me the statistics on this, are one paycheck or two paychecks away from being on the street.
100%. So one of the reasons we're doing this is one of the church members. I have some really great church members. One of them's in the room. And they push me, they push you to go, we got to do something that really matters. Ruth Lopez Turley, who's the executive director of the Kinder Institute's a member of our church. And the Kinder Institute's data says exactly that, right? That about half the people in Houston don't have $300 for an emergency if it were to happen, much less, the money to get in, pay a deposit to get into new housing. So
I bring that point up, though, just so everyone listening realizes there's a lot more potential to becoming unhoused than you think. It's not just, like you said, mental illness or drug. It's not just having a low-paying job. You can be having a job. You cannot be doing it, or something could happen, and you could be facing this. But you folks, and this is why you're here today, are trying to do something to fix that.
Yeah, so I joined a cohort about a year ago, a group that does affordable housing called Enterprise led. And there were 12 faith leaders, all of us that care about building affordable housing. And some of that's going to happen. One of the great things in Texas is we're pushing for churches to build housing on their land. And our church has 3 campuses, one downtown, one in Lindale Heights that's total Latino, and one over on the west side in Piney Point. And on 2 of those, we're working to build affordable housing. We're looking to acquire more land. And so not only on that land, the thing that occurred to me in that cohort was the reality that these vacant office buildings that are either going to be a blight across the city post-pandemic, they're just going up every day. Or we've got to find a way to convert them to real, safe, clean, affordable housing. And so we've acquired a really great building. We recently got it under contract. It's at 3838 Hillcroft. It's, if you know Houston, you've been by this building. You could walk from there to the original Papacitos on Richmond. It embodies.
Maybe I'm going to move.
You might want to live with us. It's a great spot. It embodies what's best about Houston, right? We're the most ethnically diverse city in the United States, and I think that means we got the best food. And that spot on Hillcroft is right at the beginning of Chinatown, at the edge of Indiatown, and it's Majoridad Latino. So you've got all those things happening. And it was a famous building at the time, designed by a guy named William Jenkins. He was a famous architect in Houston. He was actually the chair of the architecture school here at the University of Houston. The library for the architecture school is named after him. And it was a classic mid-century building, one that needed to be preserved. So we're working to buy it. It's a lot for a church, about $4.3 million to buy the building. And we've got it under contract, and we're working on it. You can see photos and hear more about it on our website if you go to ecclesiahouston.org/housing.
But now, Chris, what about skeptics? There are skeptics that say essentially, should churches have portfolios of real estate? How do you balance that? And I know that you talk about SB 854 in an article that you wrote for the Houston Chronicle.
Yeah.
How do you reconcile perhaps some people that are like, should churches be buying that?
Well, some of the best examples we have in the city so far for Houston have been churches like Rudy Rasmus's church downtown, St. John's, that have been doing this work. Our take is if churches don't do it, nobody's going to do it in terms of choosing to build housing that's affordable. None of the churches are going to be getting rich off building luxury high-rises, right? It's not what we're called to do. It's not what we do. But to build affordable housing for people that have been on the street, supportive housing, it's a prime spot for churches, but it's going to take a lot of support, both from churches and community to pull it off.
Can you tell me a little more? So you buy this building, now you've got to build it out as what, 1- and 2-bedroom apartments or dorm style?
It's actually, you're hitting at a fascinating question, Frank. So one of the questions, right, and when you've got Houston's Majoridad Latino, this neighborhood's Majoridad Latino, but most affordable housing are built with very small single resident occupant units. And so those work well if you've got a single person living on the street, but they don't work well for families. So we're looking at a mixture of small units and then larger units. And what we know is you don't find Latinos in Houston that live by themselves. If you ask most Latinos, and if they knew somebody that lived by themselves, they go, "What's wrong with them?" Right? You live with your abuela, you live with your family, you live with your kids, you live in community together, and you take care of each other.
So you say affordable. I'm just trying to get an idea. How much? 4.3 to buy it. You're going to spend another $4 million.
Renovating
For sure. But that's why you have generous Houstonians and you have churches that come together and you provide services and houses. And the hope is, my hope is that we'll be about half what most of the housing is in that area. So if you were to rent a 2-bedroom apartment in that area, it'd be about $1,500 to $1,800.
Let's go into that whole concept of what is affordable. When you talk about this, you're solving one of the problems by having a place for people to live. But we started this conversation off by saying people who work a minimum wage job can't afford housing. Most people, 50% or so, don't have $300 in savings if they miss a check. Eventually, what is the terminology of affordable housing, especially in an environment where everything is going?
You need a mathematician because there's a great formula. And when you're implementing affordable housing and we hire managers to run this building, that's what they're looking at is what do you make and how do we make sure that you're not spending more than 30% of your income on that housing. And so whatever your income is, and our take in Houston, the great thing about this city is we respect people that work. Right. So that's why the migrant issue, it ought to feel different here. It is different here because in Houston, if you want to work, you've got our respect. And I don't know about you, but if you pull up to Home Depot in a pickup truck here, you'll have people jump in the back of your truck and they want to work. And so my hat's off to those people. If any of us raised kids that had a work ethic, that they literally jumped into people's trucks in order to work, we'd be looking for them to do a parenting class, right, to teach us.
And they do good work.
They do good work.
You're very proud of their work.
They work hard.
Yes.
And so it's a lot of those folks that we need to be able to say, how do we give you a space? So at the end of the day, you have to follow the formula. What do you make? And how do we get you at 30% or under of what your of what you're actually making.
We did some work with the unhoused while we were working on a documentary, and the approach that we saw going on in Houston now was that it's not just getting them the house. It's all the ancillary things that go with it. It's making sure we have an environment that has jobs that pay enough that people can afford that. It's making sure they have medical care so they can go to their jobs and all of that. You're doing the first piece of it, but you can only touch so many because we see so many people unhoused. How does the city as a whole, from your point of view, redefine who we are to be a welcoming city where people can live, be sheltered, and thrive?
I think we need a lot of this, and I think we need other churches and community partners to reach out in this. Some of what you're talking about are the things that we're going to do on the first floor of this building. So the first floor of the building is supportive services. So it's a Head Start program, so your kids can be in a program so you can work, or take an ESL class, or get vocational training so that you can make a higher wage. So we've got to have some projects that do both and, that give you housing and help you get a leg up as we do that. I think we're really good at that as Houstonians. We just got to figure out how to work together.
Yeah, but outside of the church and your work, what is your message to city leaders who may be listening, to folks who want to make a difference? How do we look at this city differently as we move forward?
Well, make it easy for us, right? So remove the barriers. So where our church downtown is next to the code enforcement building, right? There's a number of things they can do that make rehab, specifically, I would say in Houston, we're going to have massive office complexes come on the market under foreclosure that are either going to sit vacant and not be able to pay taxes, or we're going to find a creative way to do something amazing with them. That will take help from the city, that we're going to have to be able to come in and say, how do we adjust the code? This is an industrial elevator, and it's made for an office building, and it's not really that different than a residential elevator. Let's make it easy to recode it so that it passes the inspection. And we can either be friendly or we can be unfriendly.
We also had a comment on YouTube from Cosme Garcia who wants to know, will rent be tied to income and means testing?
What you want to do is go into the neighborhood and you know the median income in the neighborhood that you're working in. So in that way, it wouldn't be tied to every single person's income, but you target that medium lower income so that those folks can have access and be able to pay a reasonable rate.
And how long would you expect someone to stay in your affordable housing?
You know, if you create the right environment, I think we're going to have people that come and stay for decades. You build this out for the long haul. It's long-term housing. It's not short-term. My hope is that we're really close to Wisdom High School, that we'd have families. We've done a lot as a church with the people. They don't exist fully anymore, that would do wraparound services for the public schools. And what we find is they're struggling with students that, how are they going to advance in school when they're sleeping in their car and they don't have a place? And so we're going to work a lot with the school to say, who are the families that need the most help? How do we give them stability and help them thrive?
So for people that might not be religious at all, they don't go to church, would you say that in some ways that you're crowdsourcing funding for this?
Yeah, for sure. I think this is an opportunity for everybody to chip in a really tangible way and go, let's try an experimental project, right? A vacant office building that would have been demoed, or it would have just sat empty as a blight. Why not transform it? And by the way, it's this poured concrete building, right? So it's like, it's not going anywhere. There's not the worst storm that comes to Houston. I mean, it's just not going to touch this thing. And so it would be a shame to tear it down. Let's do something together where we transform it, create an environment, and then see, maybe we could do it on a larger scale. Maybe we can be a model for other communities and other service organizations to do something that really continues to advance the impact.
Now, Chris, you were in Austin and you testified to Congress about this. Talk to us a little bit of how that conversation went and the response that you got from our elected leaders.
Yeah, those have been great. The response both from elected leaders and from people that are following the conversations, right? Because there's a number of things they can do. They can free up the opportunity for churches to build housing on their land. They can free up lot sizes so that we can build multiple spaces. We can put ADUs in existing homes. And, somebody's got a backyard and all of a sudden, you've got another part of your family that can live in the backyard. That helps solve this problem. Because at the end of the day, all of this problem really is about supply and demand. And the reality is it's about inventory. We don't have the inventory for housing in Houston to make it affordable. And what happens when inventory goes down? Prices go up. and prices have gone way up.
What's your timeline on this project?
So we're in the process to get some of the tax credits. It qualifies for some historic tax credits. That's really important on this project, and we're moving through that process and hoping to start construction middle of 2026. So
wow.
Yeah.
So what's the name of it?
It's called The Hill. So it's the Hillcroft Affordable Housing Project, or the Casa de Hospitalidad.
Let's step back from just the project itself. And I'm assuming your studies, your look at other communities, other places around, let's even go globally.
Yeah.
How do they handle this situation? Where have you seen true success stories, and what are the elements that make that happen?
There are a lot of them. And so places like New York City are places that we're looking, because they've had to deal with this problem a little bit longer than we have. I've got a coach who's a pastor in Brooklyn that they're building affordable housing at a massive scale, right? Mm-hmm. And he's got people. What happens is people like me, pastors aren't perfect, and none of us are, but we care about the people in our community, and we're aware of what's going on. And so what I'm learning is, whether it's in Detroit or whether it's in Brooklyn or whether it's in D.C., there are pastors there that have been going, this has been a problem for a while. We need to do something. And so my coach in Brooklyn, I'll be up there to see him and learn how did they do this and who managed this problem. And we're all kind of working together to try to figure it out. So from what I'm gathering,
you pretty much feel it's the inventory is the main problem.
Well,
that
inventory,
confronts us.
it all comes down, if costs are going to come down, inventory has to go up. And the reality is there is not enough housing in Houston for the people that desire to live here. And we're going to continue to grow, and we should continue to grow. We're the best city in the United States. Nobody compares to us in any of the ways. Nobody compares to our Astros that are going to go on a tear this week, or the Texans
tonight.
Yeah, my wife Kristen and I will be at the game tonight. It's Monday Night Football. We're going to win. We've got so much going on in this city. But I will promise you, the best part of our city is over on this corner. If you go to eat great food with Kaiser over at Himalaya, right? That. Mm-hmm. Anthony Bourdain loved that restaurant, right? Mm-hmm. You start going down Bel Air, of 12 miles of just unbelievable Asian food. You start to see a picture of, like, this is a great city to live in.
Speaking of painting pictures, do me a favor here. Probably not where you usually want to stand, but help us understand what the picture is if we don't do these things.
Oh.
What happens to our city?
I think we are going to see hardworking, good people and their children living on the streets in places that are not they're not safe, clean. It doesn't give them an opportunity to do well. And what happens? Crime goes up, poverty increases, and people that have the potential to really contribute to society are not in the place to do that.
So investing at this point gives you better rewards later
Huge
on.
rewards.
Saves you money.
Huge rewards. And that's what we need as a city. Some massive investments. And in Houston, we don't wait for the government to do it. We expect the government to help and not be an impediment. But in this city, citizens come around, and I'm glad FEMA helps after hurricanes, but you know who helps is Houstonians help. Mm-hmm. Like churches help, community partners help. And so this is the same kind of problem. So it just makes sense as a pastor, like, you do something.
Which, Chris, I know this is way off topic, but I have to ask you, because on Hello Houston, we bring a lot of different views and perspectives to the conversation. What is it like pastoring in today's day and age? I mean, and I know that's a really big question.
It is.
But just from your perspective, and we only have like a minute left, but still.
Well,
curious.
I came to this work honestly, right? My dad and grandfather both pastored in this city. I think the political climate is really a hard place for us to lead well. But it's the same experience I get, Celeste, when I do these trips to Israel and Palestine. I've been leading the church. My grandfather did 30 trips to the Holy Land in his life. I'm only at 18. But our trips spend equal amount of time with Palestinians and with Israelis and with Jews, right? We have some good friends called the Chefs for Peace, and they're Christian, Muslim, and Jewish chefs. And the politicians in Israel and Palestine can't figure it out, but the chefs know what to do, right? Regular people know what to do. And so as pastors, what we want to do is get people across the table. We have an expression at Ecclesia that we say, it's impossible to hate people that you eat great food with, right? Now, if you eat bad food, you might hate them.
You can hate them then.
But if you go to Papa's Brothers, right, or you go to Los Tios, or you go to one of the great restaurants in our city, and you sit down and you hear other people's perspective. So as a pastor right now, our obstacle is nobody was listening. Your show helps, right? Because people can listen. We think as pastors, we have a role in that too, to help people will you please be curious and listen to each other?
Well, they are listening. Tell us, how do we get involved in this? How can we help you?
So if you go to our website, ecclesiahouston.org, and just go to /housing. You can look at the rest of the website if you want. It talks all about this project. It gives you a place to give. I would love to. I've told people, if you want to host people in your home, I would love to come have dinner with you. I'm an amateur sommelier. I'll pour wine for you. And invite friends to say, would you guys want to give to something like this that would help build housing for Houstonians? There are a lot of ways. We're going to have service opportunities going forward in the building. We're going to have great partners in the building. But we think it's important to innovate and try something new and see how we can all work on this problem together.
Good luck.
Chris Seay of Ecclesia Houston. Chris, thanks for joining us today on Hello Houston.
Thank you.